Hello. Again, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us for our first webinar at Envision Education. Our webinar today is going to be delivered by Bauraj Guraya, our founder and director. The topic today is supporting children with autism in a school setting. So again, just a reminder, please keep your mics off, keep your cameras off. We are recording this so we can share it with you on our website. We are hoping we'll have some time for a few questions at the end as well. So if you do have any of them, please make a note as you go through and hopefully we'll have a bit of time at the end. So on that note, over to you, Bauraj.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. That was a really good introduction, Marianne. So thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. So essentially, this webinar will be giving you some practical advice and strategies for supporting autistic children in schools, particularly when you're going in on trial days through an agency or whether it may be direct with the school. And sometimes you'll have very little information, which can be quite daunting. So we'll give you some practical advice on how you can make the most of, going in on a supply day and making sure you're making the best out of that and supporting children with autism and other special needs. So it's really aimed at support staff, and we'll focus on how to make a positive difference, even when you have limited knowledge. Right. Okay, so just to start off, what is autism? So autism is a spectrum condition and essentially affects how a pupil communicates, interacts, processes information, and experiences the world. So as you know, children with autism have got different ways of communicating and they perceive and see things differently to how others see it. So you'll find that they'll have communication differences. Their social interaction may be limited. They have a need for routine. Routine is really important for children with autism. And they also have sensitivities to their sensories as well. So what you'll find is children who have special educational needs will most likely have a education, health and care plan in place. And this is essentially a document that sets out their needs and what support they should get. This is given by the local government, the council, and it's essentially provided to schools when they tell them that there's a child that needs extra support due to special educational needs. What will happen is they will then be assessed to find what specific needs they have and then be given a education, health and care plan. So you may notice pupils who have clear routines or get extra support. So this likely comes from their EHCP. Things like one-to-one time, sensory breaks or visual schedules might be part of their support. And then this is something that essentially you won't need to plan this support yourself, but knowing why it's there helps you work with it. So when you're going in for to support a child with autism, you'll probably be given a document that outlines what their education, health and care plan is. And then you may be required to implement certain areas of that plan yourself with that child. So understanding sensory needs. So it's quite highlighted with children who have autism that they have higher levels of sensory needs. So it's just really watching these signs. So for example, covering ears, avoiding eye contacts at times, distress in busy or noisy spaces might point to sensory overload. And that's where you find children with high levels of SEN, they like to be, in sort of have their quiet time and not have too much distress with a lot of noise and busy environments. So within a school, you would want to offer quiet time. This can prevent escalation. So sometimes when they do have a situation where they've been getting aggravated, then it's very important that you do offer that quiet time when needed. Thinking about your environment as well, so avoiding strong smells, loud spots or too much visual clutter near the pupil. So at times, when we are given a vacancy from a school, the teacher in the class might give us more information about the particular child, what their likes are and their dislikes. And we have had many occasions where the teacher would say, okay, this, when you ask the teaching assistant to come in, make sure that they're not wearing very strong, fragrance, for example. So there's certain things that may trigger them into that situation. So it's just being quite mindful of that. Refusal to work might be sensory, not behavior. So try reducing the noise or changing their seat before assuming defiance to be able to support them adequately. So when you're going in as a supply TA, you may walk in with very little information, but you can still be very effective. So we always say, to teaching assistants who are going in on supply days and even trial days for longer term roles, we always say to them, look, you may have little information, but it's really all about having an open mind when you're going in and understanding that you could be put in different situations. You want to have an open mind. You want to be showing that you're flexible. So essentially, when you go in, you want to observe first, how do pupils react to noise, change, or instructions? Observation is really important. I think that will give you a really good indication of the needs of the child. Keeping your tone calm and your language consistent. So if a pupil is distressed, offer them that space, reduce pressure, and be supportive. I think it goes without saying, though, when you're working with a child, I mean, even if you're a parent yourself, you would know that, if a child is distressed and you get distressed yourself, then it's just not going to work, So you've got to always try to remain as calm as possible, despite those pressures at times being quite difficult. Don't jump to conclusions. So, what looks like challenging behavior, there will be an underlying reason behind that. So understanding that, they might be anxious, they might have some sensory overload, they might be confused about a certain thing. So it's really understanding what has led to that challenging behavior and trying to calm that down as much as possible, and really working on the child's level to really understand them. And then just being ready to try different approaches, so flexibility and calmness always go a long way. So, being calm in those situations, being ready to, support the child in different ways. And really, sometimes it does come down to trial and error to be able to get the best outcome as well, and finding out what would work best. So again, we at Envision Education, we realize that communication when you're going into schools has really played a vital part in candidates being effective and successful in securing long-term roles. So when we visit schools, for example, we always ask, what are the three to five things you're looking for in candidates? And one of the top things are always communication, so and not just the effective communication with the pupils, but also equally with the staff around them as well. Having that high level of communication always leads to a successful outcome. So it can really, a lot is down to how you show up and how you connect with the staff around you. And ultimately, they're also there to support you and help you as well. So always lean on them. So first impressions count. So when you walk into a school, you want to show that first impression that you're happy to be there, that you're looking forward to supporting the children, and you're enthusiastic and you're engaging. That's always a great first impression. Being approachable, so showing that you're open to support, and you're open to advice, and you're open to guidance, and you're open to direction. showing that goes a really long way when you're working in a school environment. Asking questions as well. So, you know, there's no such thing as a silly question, as they say. So always asking questions shows that you're interested essentially in working in the school, and you're interested in supporting the child and making sure that you're improving the outcome and improving the life of that child. Being proactive as well, so just showing that you're willing to go above and beyond, so not necessarily having to kind of, you want to observe, but also you're there to do a job and really support the child to the best of your ability. So showing that proactive approach is always a great thing. And then showing that you're adaptable as well. So you might, for example, go in for a trial day to work with children with SEN. You may be required to go into working with different children. So it might not be one child. It might be, you're with one child in the morning and another child in the afternoon. So you've got to be adaptable to be able to support different children and show that with the staff around you as well. So communication is like key. If you can get that right when you're working with the staff and the children, then you're on to a winner. Positive reinforcement. So this is key as well. When you're working with children, you want to focus on that clear and simple communication, use visual supports, establish structured routines to reduce anxiety and promote predictability. So, positive reinforcement, including focusing on positive behaviors. So, really showing them that, when you do something good, you're celebrating that. It's the small wins that count, and children really pick up that energy. So when they see that you're happy and you're really engaging with the child, then you're only going to get that child's behavior to improve. Using descriptive praise as well, so really praising them when they're doing something good and really explaining why that was a good thing that they did. Offer choices, so giving them various choices so that they can choose from that, so that they understand. And then also really just not taking it personally as well. It can be challenging working with children with SEN, especially when they have a high level of needs, but really doing your best to not take things personally, and realize that you're really there to make that child's life better. Okay, so I'm going to pass this on to Marianne, who will go through some de-escalation strategies.
Thank you very much, Balraj, and thank you for that so far. We're going to have a few of these of the things you've talked about come back into this section here as well. So de-escalation strategies, here we're focusing on what we need to do with individuals with autism, on creating a calm and predictable environment. So it's using clear communication, helping to validate their feelings while also minimizing triggers. So we've got environment and routine we're looking at first. So with this, we want to create some predictability and some structure. So we want to establish clear routines and use visual aids where we can. So visual schedules, you will have probably seen those around school. They work really well for all pupils, in fact, and not just those with autism. And timers and other things like that work really well as well. And this helps the pupils to understand expectations and transitions as well. So again, we've touched on sensory aspects here, sensory considerations, really to help de-escalate. We want to minimize any sensory overload by reducing background noise. So that can be taking them to a space with softer lighting, providing that area, that quiet area. Often schools will have one in the shape of a sensory room or a sort of breakout area. But there also will be potentially be things available, particularly within SRPs and units, things like noise cancelling headphones, which can be really effective in a very busy school environment, of course. So again, in that, it's creating a safe space. So creating a designated, quiet place. You will find these in schools. You can definitely ask members of staff straight away as soon as you go in on a day, where are these spaces? Where can I go with my pupils should I find myself in a situation with them where we really have to de-escalate? So this can really help them to calm down, process emotions, and help them regulate themselves as well. Right, so moving on to the next slide here, communication and interaction. So here we want to ensure that we are calm and clear with our communication, speaking slowly, using simple language, and maintaining a calm tone of voice. It can be difficult to do that, but it's really something to remember because it really makes a difference. Non-verbal cues are really important as well. So be mindful of your body language and facial expressions when you are trying to help de-escalate situations and ensure, that your approach is calming and reassuring. Active listening is really important here as well. We want to ensure that we are paying attention to people's concerns, and that really helps validate their feelings. So giving them that attention can really be quite obvious if they're not getting that attention, if they are in, if they are in a particular situation of crisis. So it's really important that we show and demonstrate that they are being heard. Positive reinforcement, then, of course, we've touched on this already. This is really important, even when you might be finding a bit of a crisis and needing to de-escalate, because supporting and praising appropriate behaviours actually can help with the self-regulation. And again, something that for you and the pupil that can hopefully use as a technique the next time it may happen. Offering choices is something Barrage has already touched on as well. So this is really important in these situations. So instead of giving demands, offering choices where possible to give pupils a sense of control. And again, this is, I think, can apply across the board, right from, a toddler, even up to adulthood. Being offered a choice when we're in these situations really helps, and it definitely helps de-escalate the situation. So then moving on to during a crisis or a meltdown. So we know that this can be really difficult to manage. And we know that people can be quite hesitant going into a classroom thinking, what if that happens with the pupil I'm working with today? Or even if you're a regular in that classroom, you're in a long-term role or a permanent member of staff, you still might be thinking, oh gosh, could a crisis or meltdown happen today? So these are the key things that we suggest to, really keep in mind and really remember, and potentially even do a little bit of research on yourself to see where, if you are working one-to-one with a pupil or in a particular unit, that you might be able to use these for your own strategies moving forward. So staying calm, yet again, it's always, always at the top. Modeling calm behavior is essential, and it really helps avoid escalating the situation. Not always easy to do, but we'd say if you get that from the beginning, all the other techniques and strategies that you could use in a crisis or meltdown will come more naturally if you can remain calm yourself. Giving space. So again, it's going back, to finding a space, but for this, it's allowing just simply the student to calm down and actually process their own emotions that they are going through. Removing potential triggers. So we talked about this too, removing them from the situation or the environment that is causing distress. I know also everyone's going to be aware of the impact on other students in the class if there is a pupil that is having a crisis or a meltdown. So this is really important as well. And remembering, definitely ask members of staff where the appropriate place would be based on where you are in that school setting to take a pupil to. Offering support. So in this, that could be calming activities or objects. So sensory rooms will provide a lot of this. There could be weighted blankets, fidget toys, and things like that. I'm sure that you guys have had all experience with this. Again, find out where those are or what works for a particular pupil if you haven't been told when you might be in on a given day. And then we look at things that going back to visual cues. So using visual prompts and cards can be really effective. That can help the student communicate their feelings or their needs. My partner, actually, he works directly with pupils with autism, and they, I'm not sure, a few of you probably have seen the Inside Out films, and they have the characters joy, anger, sadness, and fear. And this is really popular films with kids. They're really quite aware of it, and it's all about regulating emotions. So they actually have these cards with these on with the different emotions underneath that pupils use as a visual and point to the color section that reflects on how they're feeling at that time. So those are really, really useful for you to have, again, even in your own toolkit, not just something that the school may offer as a way that you can use visuals cues for that. We're also looking then at breathing techniques that can be really helpful as well. So encouraging some deep breathing, some quiet focusing time, and you doing that yourself in order to remain calm alongside the pupil is really helpful too. And then also sensory boxes. So providing a sensory box, and then this will come with the classroom that does have, sorry, a school that will have a sensory room or a breakout area. So do find out what you can when you go in on a day to see what could be useful. There is plenty available. And then I've popped it in the middle here of my slide, but debrief is quite simply after the situation has calmed down, discuss what happened, identify potential triggers and strategies for future situations, but bear in mind all the successful things that you did do and did work with the people on when they were facing a crisis or a meltdown, and write down your own reflections on that situation as well. So I hope those bits have been helpful here. Again, using those and potentially building your own strategies. It will be different for each pupil that you work with and each school that you work with, but I hope that's been helpful in terms of giving you a bit of an overview from our side. So back over to you, Balraj.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Marion. That was very useful. Right, I'm going to go through some key takeaways. I think we do have some time for some questions, which we definitely did want to have the opportunity to answer any questions that you have. So just to go through some key takeaways here. So, I mean, you don't need all the answers, but, you know, having that calm, patient, and observant approach is going to definitely support you become successful. Focus on being supportive rather than perfect. Being ready to adjust, try again, and celebrate those small wins. Those are often the biggest steps for the pupil. And your presence, understanding, and patience can really change a pupil's day for the better. So always remember the work you're doing. You know, it's amazing. I mean, essentially, you're changing the future of these kids. So it's very valuable to them and for you as well. So thank you for listening to our webinar so far. So we have this, so Marion, you wanted to go through this
Yeah, sure.
QR code as
Quite
well.
simply here, again, as Barraj says, thank you very, very much for joining us today. This is the first in our new webinar series. We will have lots of different topics and new webinars coming up. And essentially, we would love your feedback. So there's a QR code there for you to scan that takes you to a form to fill that out. We'll also send you the link on email as well. And we'd be super grateful to learn what you thought about this webinar. And of course, any suggestions you have for future webinars would certainly be welcome as well. We are just booking in our next date, so you guys will be the first to know. So again, thank you for that. And yeah, I think now we're going to invite some questions. Is that right, Barraj?
Yes. So if we can just ask, if you have any questions, please put them onto the chat section.
QR कोड कसा काढायचा? फोटो काढायचा. Only फोटो काढायचा.
And if anyone doesn't know where their chat section is, then quite simply, you just see at the bottom here, you will see chat in the down at the bottom next between participants and the react buttons. You should see the chat there. So we'll give it a minute or so and see if any questions come in. And of course, if you do think of any question to this, you are more than welcome to pop me an email. As I say, I've been the one emailing you guys out the links and all the info about the webinars as well. So you can pop them through to us if you don't think of any this afternoon. Sorry, this morning.